We have already discussed the conflict between Achilles and Agamemnon, but there are three more scenes that show the best and worst of this adaptation. The epic Greek poem The Iliad, composed in the 8th century BC by the Greek poet Homer, is one of the most influential works for Western literature. The setting of the poem, the Great Trojan War, was brought to the big screen in 2004 with the film Troy. A large chunk of this film is about the story of the Iliad, which revolves around the rage of Achilles and its dire consequences. That is the focus of this essay, so all the content of the film that does not come from the Iliad, but rather from the Odyssey, the Aeneid, or other sources, will not be discussed in this video. The Iliad, though primarily about the exploits of Achilles during the Trojan War, has several characters, subplots, and ins and outs. There are pages upon pages of descriptions of warriors killing each other on the battlefield in some pretty violent ways. And along with a lot of other exposition and narrative stuff too, a lot of this had to be cut entirely or reduced to the background. Our study begins with the scene where Agamemnon cheats Achilles out of holding Briseis. The immediate change here, and for the rest of the film, is the absence of the gods as characters. Director Wolfgang Petersen has discussed more than once how this story decision was one of the earliest, of not showing the direct intervention of the Olympians in the story. And I will say this was done probably for runtime and pacing, but also for the inherent issue of showing these characters on screen. You can watch my video essay about Gods of Egypt to hear more about this problem. The example here, though, for this scene is how Achilles holds himself back from attacking Agamemnon in the film, but in the book, it is Athena who intervenes and holds Achilles back. Even though the Olympians from the dialogue we have are understood to be real in this film, the complete absence of any direct intervention by them in any way goes, I would say, a bit too far at certain story points, which will be discussed later. Homer was, once again, trying to focus on the stubbornness of Achilles and how that sways the war at hand. And the film does communicate that quite well, as we understand how this soldier, this single soldier, is such a big asset to this war, and how he sways how it's going to go more than he believes he does. And we also understand, on a larger story point, why these Greek city-states have banded together in a loose alliance to go across the Aegean Sea to attack the city of Troy. We have already discussed the conflict between Achilles and Agamemnon, but there are three more scenes that show the best and worst of this adaptation. A key moment in the war is the agreed trial by combat between Paris and King Menelaus, as it potentially could have stopped the war. The moment is short-lived as Menelaus quickly overpowers the prince, but goddess Aphrodite intervenes and saves Paris from death. This throws the war back into full fury. In the movie, this is almost the same event, except it is Hector that saves Paris by killing King Menelaus. Even with trying to avoid divine intervention, killing Menelaus like this was a very bad move on the part of the directors and writers, as the King of Sparta is a pretty prominent character for the rest of the story and even after. The movie had been making Menelaus out to be a creepy old brute up until this point, which is a gross caricature of the king Homer recounted in his work, who really was, despite his violent tendencies, an unfortunate victim of others' devices. Prince Paris's portrayal was also a big misfire for the film. The movie has him as the irresponsible and cowardly younger brother who always has to be rescued, but also the hopeless romantic whose lack of self-control causes disaster for everyone around him. He is almost a sympathetic figure of the movie. Paris in the Iliad is also a coward and is irresponsible, but he is not seen as childish. He stole another man's, or in this case another king's, wife, and now others are paying for it. Paris is not the child who just has to be sat down and told what the right thing to do is. He is the stubborn, selfish, and arrogant prince who took what he wanted and would do it again. The famous showdown between Achilles and Hector happens because the latter killed the former's best friend, Patroclus. The movie shows Patroclus as a young and naive fighter who dies because of his impatience, leading to a temporary truce for both armies. Patroclus was Achilles' best friend and brother in arms. He was younger but not as skilled, and he was not Achilles' cousin or acting like his younger brother. Patroclus dies in the Iliad because he gets carried away and thinks he can take on Hector himself, despite Achilles' warnings. Achilles' fight with Hector in the film is a private one-on-one duel with nothing else happening, and it ends with Achilles dragging Hector's body behind him in his chariot. This scene is the best scene in the film and was very well done for an on-screen fight. Their fight in the book is a bit different. The fight begins during an open battle, and Achilles pursues Hector while they are both on their chariots. They chase each other around the city of Troy several times until goddess Athena intervenes and tricks Hector into getting off of his chariot to take Achilles head on, and it ends the same way as it does in the film. The changes are understandable since the film is trying to make the fight front and center without anything else happening. The final key sequence is the scene where the old king Priam asks Achilles for his son Hector's body. Both the film and the book treat this scene as the moment of grace and compassion for Achilles, as he's just been full of rage for much of the narrative up until this point. The scene is pretty much the same in the book as it is in the movie, and both actors deliver it very, very well. Achilles finds respect for Hector and his father, and the Iliad ends with a funeral for Hector. In this way, Homer makes the point that if anyone was the good guy of this terrible war, it would be Hector, who, despite being made a bit less violent for the movie, still was just the noble man trying to protect his home and family. The book ends with Troy and even Achilles weeping for Hector, the tamer of horses. Troy is certainly an epic film with good execution on screen. Its adaptation of the epic Greek poem in large part does a good job at bringing the story to a modern audience. However, with some of its characters in particular, the movie butchers itself in an effort to put its own message forth rather than capturing the message of the original Greek writer. The movie, though, still is very much worth a watch for any fan of the ancient world. Troy gets an adaptation score of 7 out of 10. Hello everyone, welcome back to Movies with Michael. If you enjoyed this adaptation essay, you can show it by leaving a like on this video and comment down below what you think the filmmakers did right or wrong when adapting this book to the big screen. I understand that I couldn't get through everything today, but please remember to subscribe to this channel and click the notification icon to be notified about my latest videos. That's all for now, and I'll see you all next time.